everyone, it's Annette and welcome back to Cotto Verde. Today is the second episode in my tour of the back garden, and today's episode is going to focus on the larger area that where we have bigger beds, and these beds are slowly developing. So there are still copious amounts of weeds, but what I have found this year is that the deer pressure has been so intense. They're coming through this yew hedge that we have at the back there, and what they've done is they've sort of nibbled the first metre above the ground, and therefore they've managed to make room to squeeze through the yew hedge. It's really annoying, and we're going to be putting in a deer fence hopefully next week. So what's happened is this massive dahlia bed here that we planted maybe about 6 weeks ago whilst we were away on holiday. So we planted it before we went on holiday, and a few weeks later we went on holiday, came back, and they've basically eaten the tops of all the dahlias. And so what that's created is it's delayed my flowering. So whereas I would probably have definitely flower buds by now, I'm sorry about the plane. So as I was saying, what's happened is it has delayed the flowering with the deer eating the tops of all the plants. It's basically like pinching them. So when you pinch your dahlia, you create extra stems, so you get more flowers. So even though I'd pinched my dahlias already, they've gone and pinched them again. So I'm not going to have dahlias for another 3 to 4 weeks, maybe more, I don't know. They are reshooting, so where they've chopped them off, you can definitely see that I've got new shoots developing, but it's really annoying that they've delayed everything. I would really love to have, these are my focal flowers basically, and I would really like to have some by now. Anyway, that's my dahlia bed. I can't show you any dahlias because the deer ate them all. Let's talk about some of the other beds. So in between the so this is the dahlia bed, and then we have a path in between, and then I've got a large flower bed here that kind of flanks the patio area. So the patio is behind that and lower down. So this is the big bed, and the patio is just through there. And this cornice here, you can see all like the little new shoots here. They've eaten all of that. So this whole area where they can reach, they've eaten, and then the top obviously is much bushier because they're not touching that. But I mean, I suppose it's good to have lots of new shoots, because this is the plant where in the winter the newer growth is much brighter, and this is kind of an orangey red cornice. So I will get some lovely winter colour from their pruning, but it's really annoying because this is a lovely bush and I like to have this sort of brighter green colour here in the summer months, so that's really annoying. So the other thing that I have at the bottom here is a lovely rose called Comte de Chambord, and I've had it for years, and I had one in my old garden. I really loved it, which is why I've got another one here, but they have literally almost raised it to the ground. The deer have eaten the top entirely of this rose, and I have one bud. So just in front of that I've got another Cygnoglossum, a Chinese forget-me-not, a lovely pink one, and if you've watched my previous garden tour, you'll know that the seeds from this particular annual stick to everything, and clearly I must have, deadheaded somewhere and then dropped a seed in this bed, because there's literally just one plant. The deer haven't eaten it, so they don't like the Chinese forget-me-nots, if you're interested. So further along in this bed I have these 2 obelisks, and every year I plant sweet peas up them, and they are normally fantastic. They look absolutely glorious. They're covered in flowers at this time of year, and would have been for weeks to come, but the deer ate absolutely everything. And you can see that they were really good strong plants because they're quite thick stems, and the deer loved the sweet peas. So I don't have any sweet peas to show you because the deer ate them. I mean, it's really repetitive, isn't it? So as we move along this bed, I have this gorgeous purple lilac in the middle here, and I don't know why the deer have decided to eat this year, but they have literally snipped off all the branches that they could reach. They've taken the tops off them, and whilst lilacs don't mind a good pruning, what it meant was I didn't get any lilac flowers. So the other thing that I've got a lot of in this flower bed are the allium spherocephalon, the drumstick alliums, and I absolutely love them. So I've had some for quite a few years, and they make a really good display, and if I have lots of them then I can cut some and bring them inside too. So I like to be able to do that, but I planted a lot more really early on this year and they're looking fabulous. But what I've noticed is the ones that have been in here for a few years, quite a few years actually, are already colouring up, whereas the ones that we planted this year are still green, which I just think is kind of interesting. Don't know why they're a bit later, but they are, and that's good because I just get more colour for longer. So the things I've got in the flower bed here right at the end, as we get towards the end of this flower bed, have been in here the longest. They've been in here maybe about 5 or 6 years. So what I've got is a really lovely lilac-y purple veronicastrum, and I love this for many reasons. I love it for flower arranging, I love the spikes in my garden, and you can cut them and use them as dried flowers and they look really wonderful. They go to like a nice sort of Albany brown colour, and it's really good to be able to have that sort of structure in your dried flower arrangements too. So I love this plant and I want more of it. So next to the veronicastrum, I've got a lovely Himalayan honeysuckle. But I really love this plant. It's got these deep purple dangly flowers with bits of white, and it's gorgeous. And I particularly love the leaf colour because it's a really nice contrast with a lot of other things in the garden, and particularly against the plant that I've got next to it. If you're wondering why I'm laughing, wait for the bloopers at the end. It's literally because I can't pronounce anything. So next to the Himalayan honeysuckle, I have got a viburnum, and I think it's called Viburnum ferreri, something like that. And it's got lovely little clusters of flowers in spring. Right at the very end over here, just behind the veronicastrum, is a rose of Sharon, or hibiscus, and it's absolutely gorgeous. It's beautiful soft pink flowers. I love it. It is the last thing to leaf out in the spring. If you ever have these plants, they look like sticks, they look like they died in the winter, but they're just the last things to leaf out. And this is the first year ever we have had deer damage on this plant, and they have munched away at all the stems that they could reach. Right in the front here, with my oldest drumstick alliums, just behind that is a bunch of reddy orange crocosmia. I did not plant these. They've appeared in this bed over the years and I've just left them there because actually I think they look really cute next to the red. Looks really nice next to the alliums, and so yeah, I just get more and more every year. It's a spark of colour that I would not normally include in this garden. As you know me at all, I don't tend to go for those colours, but I think it looks really nice. And again, I do use these to dry in flower arrangements later on in the year. So I will wait for them to go to seed heads, and then I keep the seed heads and use those. So this bed behind me here is what we call the new bed because it is our newest bed, and we've been working on it for a year or two now. I've predominantly been using this bed for my annuals, and whilst there are some annuals in there this year, once I got back from holiday and realised how much the deer had eaten, I just haven't planted any more out. So I do have a nursery full of plants that are desperate to go out. Let me talk you through what's in this bed currently. So behind me here I have a lovely patch of feverfew. I did not plant this, it's just grown there. I'm actually eternally grateful because I wanted to sow some feverfew and I never got round to it, and now I have a patch. I mean, the birds must have dropped it or something, it's come from somewhere. So behind that I have a pink penstemon. That particular pink penstemon was supposed to complement a rose that I had planted right next to it, but last year we had untold pressure from the deer and all they were eating were the tops of all the roses, so they just kept coming back day after day, week after week, eating all my roses, and my roses have not survived. I mean, that is quite an investment that I have lost to the deer pressure. That is why I'm putting a deer fence up, because I just need to be able to have roses in my garden. It's an English country garden and I want roses. Anyway, the rose did not survive, but the penstemons are looking fabulous. And then the whole area next to it, my sister and her husband came to stay a while back, and she really helped me a lot and planted out quite a few of my annuals, and they have done really well. I don't think the deer got to many of them, and in there I have had some gorgeous Orlea. There's some calendula flowering, but the deer are eating all of those. There's some more Chinese forget-me-nots, blue and pink. I've got next year's Sweet Williams in there because I didn't get them in the ground soon enough to have any this year. And I've got a load of Brisa Maxima that was absolutely fabulous, and I've picked quite a lot of that already for flower arranging, but there's quite a lot there that I will use to dry. It's pretty much drying on its own, and I'll just pick it all and bring it inside and it'll be absolutely gorgeous. Particularly, it's kind of sparkly, so I think it looks really cute during the festive season. So also in this bed behind me, where my sister planted loads of annuals, there's some Dame's Rocket, which the deer have eaten. I've got one tiny purple one left. There's some Linaria that self-seeded, and there's some Scabious, and they've eaten all of those too, but they have left me one gorgeously deep red, sort of clarity coloured one, so I'm very excited about that. And then we move on to the perennials, and I've got loads of Achillea. I don't know whether anyone else has the same problem, but wherever I plant Achillea or yarrow, it just spreads like wildfire. Like, it just never seems to end. It spreads and spreads. So I do need to contain it, and I tend to just, yank at the outside each autumn when I'm clearing the bed and take some of it out, because otherwise it's just going to be a whole bed of yarrow or Achillea. But the colours are gorgeous. I love them in flower arrangements, and I would not be without them in the garden. And then behind me you can see this lovely halo of giant Scabious. Every year I go on about the giant Scabious because I love it. It was a massive surprise to me when I planted it that it would ever look like this. I had no idea. It gets really tall. The bees love it. I do pick some for flower arranging. It just grows and grows and flowers all summer long, and I highly recommend it. I am surprised I don't see more of it around, because it's this lovely sort of high, really tall, wispy thing. I mean, what's not to love? They are perennial, so they'll come back every single year. This is like my 3rd or 4th year. I can't remember, but all I do is chop them back in the autumn, and then they spring right back up again. And the deer did eat these when they were very young, and they are still doing this. So they fought back. Directly behind me here in this bare patch of ground are some self-seeded cornflower, and of course the deer didn't eat those because they're a pain in the neck to pick, and I don't grow them anymore. I don't sow them, so these are just self-seeded. They've come back from previous years, but I have made the executive decision not to sow cornflowers anymore. I'm very happy to have some in the garden, but in the garden I find that mostly if the wind blows at all, they'll keel over. So as we move along the bed here, in front of the giant Scabious and the lilac that I've got over there, is this massive plant of Dusty Miller. I love Dusty Miller. I love the grey colour in the garden. I don't like the yellow flowers. I'm sorry, I'm probably the only one. I tend to cut those off. The only reason I've left them this year is because I've lost so much else that I feel like without this little splash of yellow colour and my giant Scabious, there'd be very little in this back area of the garden due to the deer pressure. And then over here I've got a lilac, Madame Lemoni, I think that's what that one's called. So it's got lovely white flowers. I didn't have very many flowers this year. Maybe I didn't feed it enough. I'm not sure why. As we move along this bed, you'll see that I have got some gorgeous alliums. So I've got a whole patch here. This is the area where the pergola is going to go, and then on the other side I've got another patch of alliums. I think the other patch is a little bit too close to the pergola, so we probably have to dig those bulbs up. But at the moment I'm just really enjoying the splash of purple, and I don't know if you can see the purple and the yellow, which, I mean, it'd be nicer if they were together, but as I said, I don't normally keep the yellow flowers on this plant here. If you're wondering what the plant is in front of the Dusty Miller, here it's a peony, and that peony has been planted too close to the Dusty Miller, and I'm going to have to move it, and I'm dreading doing that because, yeah, I'm worried it won't flower again next year when I do it. In this area here, this side of where the pergola is going to go, so the pergola is going to go in this patch here. So in this area here, so we've got the alliums, and then in front of that I have got a Styrax japonica pink chimes, and I have been growing that for 7 years. I mean, it did come as a stick, but it's the slowest growing tree I have ever known in my entire life. I mean, it's, it probably comes up to, doesn't even come up to my waist yet. In front of that I've got a tiny pinus, which is really cute, and I love those sort of little balls that you get. I like the evergreen colour, and I kind of want some more there. Behind the Styrex there's a bunch of gladioli that I planted last year, and they did not do well. Last year they came up, the flowers looked singed. I'm not sure what was going on, so I'm really hoping I get a better display this year and that I can actually pick some. So this area here was supposed to be a really beautiful display of David Austin Queen of Sweden roses. Last year the deer just ate all the buds. They just kept nipping off all the new leaf growth and all the buds, and so they just really struggled. They now look like they've got black spot, and I've had one rosebud this year, so I think I'm going to have to take them out. So in amongst the dead roses there is some gorgeous verbascum. That's a lovely sort of soft pinky mauve colour, and it's really gorgeous. The caterpillars do attack it, but I had a really good display this year. I just need to deadhead them and then they should come back. And then to complement the Queen of Sweden roses, I also planted some really deep purple penstemons, and they're doing quite well. Then I've got another patch of Achillea. They're clearly not being eaten by the deer, and so it's really good to have them. And then I've also got another repeat of the giant scabious here, which makes me really happy. So in front of the Achillea there is a patch of Ornithogallum. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, so I'm sorry if I'm not. And then there's a huge patch of self-seeded Panicum frosted explosion, which is just a lovely sparkly grass. So as we move along to the end of this bed here, next to the giant scabious, I've got a Viburnum opulus, and I'm really hoping that I haven't pruned it very much, so I really want to create like a really tall structure with this Viburnum opulus. Behind it I've got some Annual Honesty, the Lunaria, and that did really well, and I'm just waiting for those seed heads, which are like a lovely sort of purpley green colour at the moment, but when they go pearlescent is the time to pick them for dried arrangements. So I'm just letting those go to seed so that happens. And then I've got another patch of gladioli, that I'm really hoping are going to bring a little spark of colour to the end of this bed. So what I will show you is secreted away in this corner here. I went to visit a speciality grower and chose some evergreens to plant in the garden because I don't feel like I've got enough evergreen structure, and I have got a bunch of trees here, and I will go through those when we plant them out, but we're waiting for the garden to be levelled in order for us to do that. But as you can see, I've got some gorgeous examples here of evergreen structure, and I'm really excited about those. So this is the other side of our eucalyptus hedge. On the other side of this is the patio area that I covered in my previous video, but I'm just going to give you a little tour of what goes on the other side of the eucalyptus hedge, because this is a much more shaded spot and I thought it'd be interesting to show you. And then I'll show you what's left of the annual bed that I had this year before the deer attacked it. So over here, and closest to the house, we've got a lovely Deutzia. It's a beautiful white shrub, and it looks gorgeous every year. It's covered in bees and it makes me really happy, and I think it's particularly happy in that spot. So then in front of it, on this side of the bed, we've got a Mexican orange blossom. I think it's called something like Chiosia tenata. I'll put the name up on the screen, and it's a lovely evergreen shrub. And then in the front of the bed, in front of the eucalyptus, I have got a variety of penstemons. There's some dark purple aquilegia, and there are some snapdragons that come back year after year, which really surprises me because this hedge shades, the eucalyptus hedge, shades all these plants for quite a lot of the day actually, because this is west facing. So I'm surprised that the snaps do quite so well, but the penstemons seem to like it, the aquilegias like it. So as you come around the corner here, right on the corner, on either side of the path, I've got two Philadelphus, and these are attacked every year by aphids. I spray them with, just soapy dishwater just to try and alleviate them. This year I even got at them with a hose to try and get rid of them, but to no avail. So I've got a lot of sort of really crumpled looking leaves, and I had very few flowers, which is really disappointing. As you come along the path, I've got some Astrantia, which do quite well. I've got Veronica, some lovely pink Veronica, and some Dusty Miller. There are two peonies, one planted either side of this Viburnum opulus, which this one does the best for me every year. It looks absolutely gorgeous. There's also some Gara that I've planted in this bed that kind of grows up and intertwines itself inside the viburnum, and it kind of looks really pretty. So that one looks really good. So behind the Veronicastrum and the Himalayan honeysuckle on this side of the bed, I had a lot of poppies, and I've never ever had my poppies eaten before by deer, but they ate every single poppy, and these are the perennial poppies that come back every year, and they just ate the lot. They also ate a geranium. Oh yes, I've got geraniums in this bed behind me too, just lovely white geraniums, but they ate the geranium on that side. I don't understand it. I just didn't think they liked those particular plants. So I'm now going to show you this bed here, which we call the bedroom bed because it's outside our bedroom, and this is where I planted lots of annuals before we went away on holiday. This is also where we transplanted the Viburnum opulus earlier in the year, and it's done really well. We had flowers. The leaves aren't quite as big as the other one on the other side of the steps, but yeah, it's doing okay. It seems to have worked. So in this bed I have got some larkspur, which I did sow in the autumn, but then I went away and they didn't survive. Silly me. And so I had to re-sow them, and they're just a bit spindly this year. I will get some flowers, but they're just not looking great, and a few of those did get eaten by the deer. I've also got a load of snapdragons, and they're looking really good, and the deer haven't touched them. And then I've also got some setaria, which is bristlegrass, and that's the first year I've grown it, and I've already got one. When I say one, I'm talking about one stem. They're quite big chunks of seed heads, I think they are. Anyway, it's looking really good. And then I've got some statice, some limonium. Everything else that I planted in this bed has been decimated by the deer. So I planted also some agrostemma, I planted some clarkia, I planted some melope, I planted poppies, and scabious. I planted scabious. And they've all been eaten. So as you can imagine, when I came back from holiday and saw the devastation in my garden, I was more than a little bit distressed. But, you know, plants grow back and there will be another year. But I'm also going to, as soon as the deer fence is in, I am just going to start planting like crazy, and I'm determined to have flowers this year. So the weirdest thing is, and I think this is probably true of everybody, is when we went on holiday, where we were staying, there was a very friendly deer that came to eat literally next to our terrace and munch on the wild area in this B&B. And we were talking to the owners one day when we happened to pop back, and they showed us that where they were gardening in their garden, there was some grass, and in the grass there was a fawn, and it was so beautiful. I'll put a video up. You can barely see it because I didn't want to disturb it, but he showed me this fawn and it was gorgeous and my heart melted. Then I got back here and realised that the deer had eaten everything, and I went from, you know, adoration and love to extreme hate. So there are two sides to every story. I do love deer, I just don't want them eating my plants. They can eat everything that's out in nature. Why are they coming in my garden? I just wanted to mention quickly that the dahlias that I planted in the pots in previous videos are doing really well, and the deer don't seem to have attacked them at all, and I've got buds on those dahlias. So I'm definitely going to have some dahlias this year. They're just going to be really short and in pots, and the rest of them are going to be quite late. But the dahlia pots on either side of the steps are doing great. So that's it. I hope you've enjoyed the mini tour of my back garden. We are going to be doing loads of stuff in the garden this year, so do subscribe to my channel if you're interested in finding out what we're doing. We're digging a pond and we're planting trees and, you know, making paths. So there's going to be loads going on, along with all the beautiful flowers, of course. And I will definitely be doing a follow-up video about all the dahlias once they start blooming. And I'm really hoping that the people who put the fence in, the deer fence in, will let me video that too, so that I can show you how they do it. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time. So I'm not going to have dahlias for another 3 to 4 weeks. 3 to 4 winks? Winks? That I would normally be getting very soon. Please excuse the plane that's now flying over. He was here earlier and I thought he'd gone, and they just sent to try me. What would you call that? Lilac-y, pink, lavendery? No, it's more lilac-y pink. Lilac-y purple. So, called a viburnum. No, it's called a viburnum. It's called a viburnum ferrari. Viburnum ferrari. It's called. Help me. Help me. May not flower this year, but I just don't want to plant things. There's a spider. Where is that spider coming from? It's like flying through the air. Where? I'm standing in the middle of open air. A flying spider. So in this area, I really need to get better at pointing. And then in front of it, on this side of the bed, in front of it on this side of the bed. So then in front of it on this side of the bed. Yeah, dear.